Okay.
Ray will now introduce us, I think. Is that right?
Okay, friends, and good morning to all. The talk we have this morning by Helen Gamsa has an intriguing title, which is Stitches for Survival and Other Craftist Plots. Sounds like something from early government. Helen, when you're ready.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much for asking me, putting me on the spot. I have spoken, and I'm just overwhelmed by how you've kept this process going since the beginning of lockdown, as I understand it. I'm full of admiration for Patsy, Ray, whoever else at Central or elsewhere has been doing this, and putting lots of people on the spot so that you've got somebody new to speak each week. So I'm honoured to be part of this. I did speak about this for about 5 minutes in the Reflect and Connect day, so I'm building on that and bringing it up to date, because Stitches for Survival, if it had been thought of, I hadn't heard of it back in March, I must say. So I'm going to talk about my experiences with Craftivism generally to start off with, and then through to sort of chronologically to Stitches for Survival, and I hope there'll be lots of time for discussion if we don't have any more glitches. Is it obvious where the word craftivism comes from? Does that make sense to everybody? Craft and activism. So the idea is it's activism through various forms of craft, and that's got a long history, hasn't it, really? Craftivist plots, well, it sounded like a snappy title to me, and it is in the definition. I went into Wiki and various other places. Craft is associated with trickery, isn't it? If we say that someone's crafty, they're cunning as well as clever. So craftivism maybe is subversive by its nature. If you think of guerrilla knitting or guerrilla gardening, so guerrilla gardening is when people go and see, you know, a patch of earth, a patch of brambles or whatever in a public place and decide to improve it for the community, and maybe go out at dead of night or when there aren't too many folk around and put some bulbs in or put some veg in or something and grow something. So guerrilla knitting or yarn bombing and so on, is people knit interesting things and put them on lampposts or hang them or decorate something with knitting. So I suppose maybe the guerrilla bit is it's done off your own private property and not necessarily with permission, by definition, I suppose, without. So it's been suggested it has an anti-capitalist angle to it, as well as an environmentalist, often a feminist aspect, and lots of other ists you might think of. And I was thinking, is decorating lampposts in your street with knitting, is it just cheering people up? We've seen that sort of thing during the lockdowns, but I think there's an element of reclaiming that public space and building community, which is very important and is an important part of craftivism. It's collective, engaging people collectively. So I met it first individually. I was on one of those very boring lockdown walks around the block, which involves sort of going up the hill and round the street at the bottom of my garden. And I was quite intrigued because this is Henley's and I don't associate it with anything activist at all. And I was wrong. I saw some banners on a window. Now, if I'm clever, I will show you the sort of banner it is, because I'll try and find that window again, but I haven't found it. Share that picture, if I can see where it is. Have you got a picture?
Yes, we have.
Have you got a picture of a woman leaning over a gate?
Yes, we do.
Right, so I'm doing it the way thank you. Thank you all for your patience, friends. Right, now, this is not the picture I saw last March or June or whenever it was, but it is the person, that's Jan. And what I saw that time, what she's showing now is what she put up at Christmas, wishing you a happy and healthy 2021. and her holly and she's made that from embroidery, and she's made little crochet things and sewn them on and so forth. What I saw that first time intrigued me because it was about social justice. It was about the planet. I didn't take a picture of it. And it was about collection here for the food bank, and all sorts of good messages and pictures, and a reference to a Craftivist group and a phone number. And I thought, there's somebody really interesting, and she nearly lives at the bottom of my garden. So I contacted the number, and that was how I met Jan and some of her crafty friends. So I will do the second slide, which actually does give us the which I've now here we are. The second slide I hope we can do. I'm not sure how to do that. Okay, is that it? What is a craftivist?
Yep.
Fantastic. Oh, okay, I think we have a method now. What is a craftivist? Okay, here we have the Oxford English Dictionary. A person who creates and displays handmade objects, especially items incorporating knitted or sewn text or imagery, or both, to promote a political message or raise awareness of a social issue. And it's global, isn't it? It goes way back in history. It's often associated with women. That's not universally the only thing. So what I got into was this group thing of getting together, making banners, looking towards expressing one's feelings about social and climate justice. There is also, no, sorry, I'll go on with that. So the group, which has grown a lot, was a few of Jan's friends who had been in the habit of coming to her house. We did that terribly carefully. I remember going to her house and thinking, am I allowed to touch this wool? You know, and what's the distance? And, you know, all the stuff that we were into at that time. But she was sharing materials which were recycled. They came from scrap store. They were Hessian bags cut up, wool, the whole thing being that if you hang it up in public, it will rot away naturally in due course when you tie it to a tree and when it's had its day. And we could get together eventually in local parks, pubs, stitching the personal and political together. And obviously there's a lot of sustainable principles in here. Sharing, reusing resources, and also community-wise mutual support, respect, inclusivity, and encouraging each other to go forward with the next step and actually put something up in public.
Mental health meeting is next
for people to engage with.
Helen Gamsa.
Graham, could you go mute, please? Thank you. So I've got some slide. I hope now to be able to show you a series of picture slides would be nice. Let's see, and I can just talk to those if I get them to you. Sorry, screen share, then on to the now what I'm not sure is how I managed to go from 1 to 2 on that, because I want to go to 6 now. Oh, no, just a minute. Slide go to. And it's, sorry, it will be all right when I get here, right. These turned up in Henley's, and I now know Jan's signature. She's very, very into tree planting. She's been involved in that locally. A new little mini wood was formed just north of Badock's Wood in an area by a stream that was really very unprepossessing. Anyway, let's plant trees, love trees, and so on. One of the group had been very fired up by the not just George Floyd, you know, in the context of George Floyd and all that, but there was that, we're not far from Southmead Hospital where I live, and you'll remember in the local news and the national news, there was a worker at Southmead Hospital who was brutally racially attacked on his way home from work. Somebody was minded to do this banner, Take a Knee, and the group encouraged someone to put it up, and that was actually for a while in the grounds of Southmead Hospital, which was very appropriate. And another part of that has Southmead Hospital. I went round the back to see what on earth this banner was, and it's a thank you to key workers. That's the first one I did. Bit rough and ready, be an earth protector. That went up on, that was on, may even still be in a scruffy pile on Hallfield Common actually. But I'd made a start. Then I got obsessed with the swifts. This isn't exactly climate activism, except that swifts are endangered, and I got very involved watching them and learning about their very brief time in our country, and putting up boxes on our top of our side of our house to see if we could attract swifts in to encourage the Henley's population to grow. Hasn't worked yet, but we'll hope for next year. Yeah, and that's very close to where I live actually. That was there quite a while. Somebody from my meeting thought St Andrew's Park was a lovely place to walk, except that people were crowding and making her feel very uncomfortable. And she said, I wish people would be kind and make space for each other. So I made a banner and we went and put it up in St Andrew's Park. Whoops, okay. So yeah, that phrase that's been attributed to Gandhi, but apparently wasn't ever recorded as having been said by Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. It's a wonderful phrase, whoever may have said it or made it up. It's wise advice. And I very much felt that from this group, that the mutual support, the lack of competitiveness and the appreciation of whatever work we've done. There are skilled crafters and there are complete beginners and everything in between. And anyone with skills is more than happy to pass on their skills. And to listen in a non-judgmental way. And I felt I had a very interesting little but memorable learning experience out of this. Whether you think this is anything to do with craftivism, I don't know. But in our little WhatsApp group, on one occasion, I made a dig, behind the back of my often irritating next door neighbour, who likes to sit outside at certain times of the year into the evening or in the morning, even when it's cold, sitting all wrapped up, but with patio heaters going so that she can chat to her friend during lockdown conditions. And it incenses me as much as her watering her lawn with gallons and gallons of mains water and all the other non-sustainable things she does. Anyway, I made a dig at this person on the WhatsApp group, and I sort of was slightly uneasy about it. And it was met by complete silence. And I thought about it. I thought, yes, I'd like to take that down. And I found it was too late to take it down. But what I felt was people think, we're not going there. And I wished I hadn't gone there. That's what does that achieve? Either I'm going to talk to my neighbour and address the issue with her, or I've got to just live with it and do what I can do in the world. It's sort of what they call virtue signalling. Aren't I great? I don't do bad things like that. Not very impressive, not very Quakerly. Okay, I would love to have got you a picture of some craftivism that was done at the church in Bishopston, Church of the Good Shepherd. I saw it in our local free paper. They had been working on the issue of modern slavery, and they had knitted or crocheted a chain for the equivalent of each person thought to be in modern slavery in Bristol today. I think it was 951, but that's only my vague memory. And they, linked all these knitted things together to make a chain, which is, it's not a very easy thing to display very impressively, but the last time I looked on Bishop Road, it was round the notice board in front of that church, and I thought that was lovely, and it would be nice to make contact with that group from that church. Yes, I won't worry about the slide of you don't need a slide just to show you this book. This is called The Art of Craftivism, and it's by Sarah Corbett, and anyone who gets involved in Craftivism will meet that name. The Art of Gentle Protest, and she describes herself as coming from an activist family, but being too introverted to be comfortable doing public type activism. And so she, amongst others, sort of developed this idea of craftivism and gave a lot of attention to how you do it and how you, in the sort of conversations you engage in while you're working together. And anyone who's been into it may think of a Quaker project called the Loving Earth Project that some people have been involved in. It has the same sort of flavour, the same kind of ideology, the same kind of values with it. I won't go into it now, but one of the things that Sarah Corbett goes into is you might call one-to-one craftivism, very targeted work where you want to influence somebody. It could be your MP and other people doing similar things around the country. It could be a company who you want to change their policy, their investment policy or something like that. With Marks and Spencer's, it was their failure to give workers living wage. And you actually research the person that you're going to speak to, that you're going to send your gift of craft to, and you design it to engage them, to grab their interest. And I think that's a really interesting way of working. I haven't personally got involved in it, so it doesn't feel appropriate to spend time on that. I need to be moving towards talking for Stitches for Survival and seeing if I can show you some pictures of that. Yes, I think what I like about it, I suppose I like the gentle activism. It's very heart-based, and I think we have learned, haven't we, in recent years, that stories, art, music, representations that reach the senses as well as the mind often speak louder and more directly than words alone, and texts and messages and banners were words. Somebody said blah, 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 didn't they? So Stitches for Survival was conceived initially in Edinburgh as a Craftivist project across the country in the lead up to COP26. And the aim was to create a huge, striking visual message about our love and our hopes and fears for the planet. And the plan would be a scarf a full 1.5 miles long, representing the maximum 1.5 degrees. I've no idea why they didn't go for kilometers to match the Celsius degrees, but this level of heating that we must keep to so crucially. So at the individual level, you would knit or crochet or sew or construct a panel of 1 meter, 100 centimeters by 60, and predominantly would use blue and green hues for the planet, for the land, for the sea, putting images or words or both conveying our messages for the planet. And then this would be sewn together. Actually, to be realistic, it was sewn in sections of 20 panels. I mean, what can you do with a scarf 1.5 miles long? You roll it up, you know, it's going to take you several hours to display in Glasgow during the COP conference. And people of any age and any community, gender, whatever, could be involved. And there certainly was a lot of, I'm aware of a lot of age inclusivity. There were children involved, there were grandmothers working with their grandchildren and everything else. And all you needed to contribute, minimum, would be a square, would be maybe a 20 centimetre square or 10 centimetre square, because squares can be sewn together, and they have been. I'll show you some pictures how inventively that can be done. And so a number of banners would be produced and they would be posted or taken to Glasgow. And This was not the end of it. This has not been the end of it. Obviously, they've been to Glasgow and back, but the stitching had been done in such a way that it can be unstitched again afterwards, and those 20 panels can be then 3 or 4 panels together can make a blanket. And you would negotiate with your local homelessness organisation, especially also your refugee organisations, as to how these could be used. And my understanding is that Aid Box community is going to auction a number of the most interesting looking panels from Bristol, and then use the remainder for blankets. And a few we've kept for displays. I'll come on to that. Because there's lots of local displays that have been and are being organised. Right now, should you be going to Southmead Hospital for an outpatient appointment or to visit somebody, hopefully not to be admitted, you will see that there are 12 banners, 12 Bristol panels. Sorry, banners and panels always confuse me with 2 words. And this project spread word of mouth. It spread in a big way on social media. And groups sprang up all over the country and beyond. I mean, I can do things, it's just a little, maybe rather than putting things in chat box, if somebody wanted afterwards, I could send a few links and you could get them from Patsy. Would that work best, perhaps? As you know, I'm not quite so snappy as to be able to do this quickly as I go. Anyway, the Glasgow project partner on the ground, which collected and stored the panels and has done a lot to coordinate this, is called Revolve and Recycle, and managed by LEAP, which is a charity working to enhance the lives of older people across Scotland. And it focuses on clothing reuse, clothing mending, reducing waste, recycling, reusing things for other people that can use them, and many other services for the whole community, bringing in the stories and skills and experiences of older people. So there's a nice little write-up on the Stitches for Survival website about them. So back in Bristol, glass of water. So our ad hoc little Craftivist group making little banners for the trees on Hallfield Common or wherever, or maybe going and chatting to the local garden centre about keeping, sustainable compost and all the rest of it. We then morphed into something a bit more focused, quite an engaged Stitches for Survival group, as I mentioned earlier, with a WhatsApp group, Facebook. And we gathered every Saturday, actually, mostly on Hallfield Common outside the cafe at Ardagh Pavilion, sometimes in other local parks, and once a month we went to College Green to try and engage people from more parts of the city, sitting on College Green with our folding chairs and doing our knitting. And people did come in that way, which was lovely. I invited some of my Facebook friends because it was suggested you did, and a certain friend from Thornbury, you might work out who it was, managed to joined in and managed to make almost half of the Bristol panels. Seemed to have had an attic and a spare room full of so many old fabric scraps, to use all her spare time making those and then promoting and displaying them afterwards. And that was Chris, of course. My output was not so big. I co-created one panel with my daughter, kicking off from a crochet thing that she'd made, which then turned into a COP26 Stitches for Survival panel. But then I joined the group when we were sewing up the squares and people were making these amazing designs, and I still don't rate my design skills at all, but I've got the practical skills to help sew the thing that somebody else has designed, or maybe just comment on the colour and bring things together. And like, I think I've tried to take on board this thing that everybody's ability and everybody's input is of value. If it's a small scruffy square or it's 6 beautifully artistic panels, that, we weren't going to get a mile and a half of fantastic, beautifully artistic panels. We wanted quantity as well as quality. Have some of you looked at our area meeting newsletter this month? Any nods? 1 or 2 nods? Well, do, because amongst other things, you will see 2 lovely panels made by the children at Redland Meeting. because probably from the September event on Castle Green, where lots of art and craft work was done out there, Helen Adshead got fired up by this, and probably with other people, got the Redland children involved, and they made, was it 12 animal felt pictures, and they were made into 2 panels. And then after taking them to Bristol Cathedral for the Camino to Cop pilgrimage to set off, and showing them at the various art trails in Bristol where we could, the output went up to Glasgow, nearly all of it, in early November. And on the 6th of November, which I think was a weekend of much community action up there, the place where they were displayed was very lovely. It made me think of Brandon Hill and the rights for Bristol residents to beat their carpets up there. I don't know if that sign is still there, but it certainly was when I first moved to Bristol. That there is a drying green, there is a Glasgow drying green where residents still have the right to go and dry their washing. So there are poles, and ropes were strung between these poles, and lots of pegs were taken up there. Lots of pegs were collected. This is the value of social media, isn't it? You put it out. Anybody got any spare pegs? Anyone got any spare curtain rings? Whatever, and you gather them in together. Right, so let me show you a couple of pictures on the drying green. And it is number 16 or 21. Sorry, I'll have to move the slides one at a time, which is a bit tortuous. I'd have taken some of it. Oh, well, that was the panel I made with my daughter. Turnover. She did the crochet of this lovely sort of maple leaf, and the little were they monarch butterflies or orange hair streak, whatever they were, that and I did the knitting, and we did the construction together.
You might be able to click through using the right and left arrow.
Okay, I'll try that. Brilliant. Thank you. Yes, that was Camino to Cop. Right, there is some of the banners on Glasgow drying green. So that is now there's a video there of it, but we may not have time for that. That was when we showed some of our local ones on College Green. And I think that was Lissa, who is behind Ronnie in the top left square. She is the wonderful person who can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You can give her a few scruffy squares and she can get her workbox into play, and she can get a theme for it, like Code Red or Pond Power or something, and make a lovely banner that adds to the thing. I do like, oh, it's not there. It's in our hands. There's no Planet B. This one on the top right, we are guests, not owners. Lovely, lovely message. Save our seas. There's the one about the don't be a dinosaur. Was there the one I want? Oh no, I'm not seeing the one I want. Those are the ones, they're up at Southmead Hospital now. You can see we're guests, not owners. COP26, our planet needs you. Keep Bristol girt lush. That's a nice one. Underneath, you can't quite see the writing there. Underneath the our planet needs you. Bottom left, the polar bear's saying I'm having a meltdown. So it's quite, well, that was just by local COP one. That's another Wholefield Common one. Yes, there is a video, there is an audio, but it's probably best if I come off the screen share and see what else I was going to say, if anything. Yeah, I think really it's just about, it's been lovely to think of all the places where you might show these, and Chris was certainly keen to show them. Oh no, Jan showed them at Lockleys at a green festival. Chris got them out at Yate in the parish hall, as well as at that shopping centre that you saw just now. actually, that was quite interesting, because she got both the Lord Mayor and the head of the council out adding something to a banner, and eventually an article appeared in the local press. They've been in churches during art trails. They've been in Bristol Cathedral twice, and somebody suggested going into local primary schools, maybe doing a climate-based assembly. That's an idea yet to get organised, but it's a lovely idea. So you've probably got the message by now that my angle on it, I suppose, is that this is part of how we do activism. There's lots of ways. They all can work alongside each other. They can all contribute different things to the mix, to the message. And I think for me, the community building part is very important. The networking, the getting word out. I'm sure there's ways of becoming even more inclusive, taking it further, but it's very immediate, isn't it? Most people can knit something or wield a needle or learn a little bit more how to do that. So I do want to continue this connection. I want to continue to do this thing I enjoy, but in a direction of something really vital right now at our time. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Helen. As I said before, an intriguing talk. Questions and comments, please, friends. Rosalie, you need to, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Helen. That was an amazing talk, and so colourful and positive. And I think you made extremely well the point that whether you're a beginner as regards to knitting, crochet, sewing, or anything, or an expert, there is something, there is a way in which you can contribute. I was really pleased that 3 of the panels were able to come to Portishead the day before our COP26 pilgrimage, where we welcomed friends from Clevedon, and then they were brought back to Castle Park for the Sunday gathering. So it was really lovely to be a part of that. And I was in Clevedon recently, just thinking about your comment about yarn bombing, and there are bollards down both sides of, I think it's called Hill Road, and they have all been given covers, knitted, crochet, and so on. Some are really witty and seasonal with Santa Clauses and reindeers on the tops, and others are in earth colours and blues and the sea and green, and with flowers attached, etc. So it does the job of kind of disguising something that was pretty ugly, but also to put a smile on people's faces. So I think there's a lot to be said. And I have seen on various Facebook feeds pictures of post boxes that have had caps decorating them with all sorts of themes, and sometimes seasonal ones. So it serves to be cheerful and keeping our spirits up as well. So thank you for sharing that.
I feel very inspired by the idea of doing something to my local post box. I must say, I think that would be, especially at Christmas, you could, I'm going to go away and think of the best things to put on it.
What worries me is that I live in a part of Bristol where this is never seen. We have my front window of my house is about the only one with posters up. or comments on the world that we live in. And it's worrying that part of the city, the north part, has all this activities going on and ours doesn't. It's like a split city. I went the other side of Hartcliffe this week to see the food bank, by the way, and I've never seen so many plastic bins full of food in my life. And it made me realize how many people are struggling. I don't think anyone's quantified it in the city. It's just, we're told, and it makes it sound like a few. No, it's not. It's lots. So perhaps we need a banner somewhere saying, think widely about Bristol South.
Yes, I guess I sort of touched on that with inclusivity. We were hoping that you know, there might be groups in different parks around the city, and that never quite took off. You know, our immediate little group, quite a few live in Westbury-on-Trim or Henleys, but you know, maybe probably not quite in Southmead. But you know, there's been this tree planting project, and they've got an active litter picking group now that's been sort of supported by the Sustainable Westbury-on-Trim. So there is some community activism, some care for the locality beginning to develop that there. I'm just mentioning that patch because it's quite close to us. So hopefully they can build on that. Yeah, because it's it's got to be done with the hope and the intention to make it nice, so that people will, on the whole, respect it rather than vandalize it or, you know, treat it badly. I mean, most people, so much research, isn't there, about, you know, if you've got trees outside your hospital window, you know, you will recover more quickly than if you're gazing out at a brick wall. So if your environment begins to have things growing or colourful things appearing in it, it will actually feed the positive health and well-being of people living there or having to be in that hospital room. David, did you want to come in?
Yeah, fantastic, Helen. That's really, really great. I get caught up in my own little world thinking this is what we need to do to save the planet. And you know, oh, that won't work, what they're trying won't work. But when you see some group doing something really creatively that's sort of in life, you know, that sort of nourishes the spirit. And you know, on the one hand, you can say, well, you know, it's not going to change the capitalists and everything, but on the other hand, it's lifting human spirit, you know, and it's bringing some kind of shift in consciousness, and I think that's really important. And just to address Jenny's point, I mean, I think that neighborhoods rise and they fall, and I've seen places like Lockleys and Lawrence Weston, where they've had some funding come in to help set up neighborhood trusts or neighborhood plans, and they've actually managed to lift up and go on from strength to strength. And I think that there's a really big job to be done in Bristol over the next 10 years to get us carbon neutral, and if that can be done through enlivening communities and getting activism, craftivism, you know, workivism, retrofitivism going, then that's great. You know, anything that gets people talking to each other and engaged with their talent, their skill, bringing that to bear on creating a more lively community. Lovely, very, very, very positive and inspiring. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think anything that helps us come out of that powerless and hopeless state, so that we can act in some way, you know, in our own lives, not just hide under the duvet or stay at home because everything feels so dire. Things are getting more and more dire, week by week at the moment. But I suppose it's that thing of, it's that be the change you wish to see, or model the way you would like, the be kind. It always sounds a little bit feeble, doesn't it? Be kind, or compassion in politics and so on. But we have to try and live those values, don't we? We have to try and we're going to get a better response, and we're going to, feed a positive loop where ideas and practice can take flight.
Here's something which I think may be controversial, but last month I went to the M Shed to see the exhibition on graffiti, the development of that within Bristol, and that developed in some of the poorest parts of Bristol, in Bedminster, in Easton, in Know West, and places like this, which is now being considered as kind of art and kind of political art. How would you class that, Helen, within the realm which you are involved in?
Oh, that's interesting. It's sort of, I suppose it's a kind of guerrilla public art, isn't it? I mean, some of the kind that you're referring to, I think, not just people doing a picture or doing a scroll, but having a message. I mean, there's some lovely by the underpass on the St Paul's roundabout that used to have that huge mural. Well, there's lots of murals around, actually, aren't there, on the Fish Ponds roundabout as well. I love seeing that. It's lively, it's interesting. It's been done generally by the community, or someone deliberately brought in by the community to make that statement, just tell that story.
Because
I'd never thought that before. So guerrilla gardening, guerrilla knitting, and guerrilla pub. I suppose there's guerrilla. I mean, I even met some not guerrilla music. I went to this is just happenstance again, because a plan of mine went wrong for no fault of mine or anybody. It was to do with the weather. I found myself in Bristol and wanting to be outdoors somewhere, and went to Abbott's Pool. And as we came down towards Abbott's Pool, there was some music drifting across it. It sounded like panpipes. Anyway, this chap who had some day job but really wanted to be an artist and a musician had constructed out of shells a sort of sculpture which was on the side of the lake, because I couldn't see anybody making this music. I couldn't see anybody broadcasting it or playing it, where it was coming from. And this shell structure was rotating and the music was coming out of there. Of course, it was a Bluetooth speaker inside, but he'd made this thing and he'd taken it to various places during lockdown and played music. He'd taken it to the harbour side, he'd taken it to Greenbank Cemetery, where a lot of people go and walk, and mostly got very positive responses because he'd been furloughed. He had lots of time on his hands. I'm going to do my art now. And so the music wasn't his, it was his choice of music recordings, but he was playing, he was always stepping back. He was putting this thing down, setting it up with a delay and then walking off so that nobody quite knew where it was coming from or who had caused it to happen. And it was a lovely gift. It was a lovely gift. And that was mostly the response he'd had. And I suppose that thing about public space, you sort of think, well, I can't do this. Do I need a license? Do I need permission? Can I tie this banner on this tree? And all I've been told about that in terms of the little Craftivist Hessian things is if you tie it to a lamppost that belongs to the council or a telegraph pole, it might get torn down. But generally, if you put it on a tree, it's much more likely to stay put. And that's mostly been our experience, and so then you are going to respect that, hopefully, that tree by not putting something made of plastic and acrylic and whatever. But yeah.
I like the idea you said that you put it on the tree and it slowly rots away, you know, kind of that is part of the environment which we'd like to have, I guess.
It's not yes. Yeah. I think that's the best way, because when they fall down, like my Swift one did, so, you know, because it's just on the corner near my house, I brought it back home and it's all scruffy and it's had lots of rain on it. And I go, what? I don't know what to do with it now. I'm not sure it's good enough to put back again, but, and I can't quite throw it away, you know. Perhaps it goes in the compost heap when it really has got no more life in it to show. But yes, I mean, I felt that I like doing these things I do, but I don't have any particular visual design skills, which is why I tend to lean on other people and ask for their ideas. And I've got two very creative adult children, so, you know, they and other people I know can do the ideas. And I think that's why I didn't do a Loving Earth panel, because I probably wrongly perceived it as quite a sort of high artistic talent thing, and that there were some absolutely gorgeous things I've seen online that I played with the idea of getting involved and I never quite did. So yeah. And just making the most of the skills you have got. And I have to say, I was just really, really thrilled that the Castle Park thing went off so well, because I had taken some measures to sort of kick it off at the start, and it didn't seem there was a great deal of interest, you know, and I sort of coordinated some Zoom meetings and this and that and got people involved, and then I couldn't go because the date was set the day I was going on holiday. And I thought, well, and then when I heard 60 people were there, I thought, well, that was much better than me and 2 other people being there. 60 people were there. Somehow that was a sort of tree thing. And you know, I've always liked networking, so maybe that's my bit to do. That's my creative bit. Yeah. Oh, good.
Jenny, did you want to say something?
Well, I was wondering whether we could get Banksy to come to Stockwood, because the only graffiti we get is sort of someone's name or a image and gone, but it's not many walls up there. But a beautiful Banksy outside the post office would really go down well. You must remember that Stockwood had the second highest BNP vote and still has. A right-wing candidate always stands in Stockwood. Bedminster was first and Stockwood was always second, with where the anti-establishment right-wing thinkers seem to live. And I think that some of it has caused people to keep their heads down and not get involved in things in case it's dangerous, which is suppressing people who probably have really good souls and good things to say. Yeah, it's a shame. The next road down from me, my daughter says, has the highest crime rate in the city. Now, no one tells you that about a place where at the edge of the city, but there are other pockets like that. And I wondered whether sometime they ought to be part of the indicators that the council looks at in depth and then tries to work out why. But I mean, to get them involved in artistic things is something that's so needed.
Bring back the youth projects.
Yes.
Bring back the youth workers and the youth clubs, and yeah.
We have a youth club that's only open on Friday night, and you have I tried to get a group of young women to attend about 10, 15 years ago. One or two of them had been raped by somebody who had a history of raping women, and I felt that they needed the support, and they wouldn't have them. There were too many of them, they said. Well, I think that was significant in itself. Anyway, my daughter opened her front garden. They all sat out inside in front of her house and had their get-togethers and supported each other there.
Excellent.
It's this city is different by ward by ward.
It
And
is,
I
isn't it?
think
It's yes,
some of it needs more working on.
yes, it's very ghettoized, isn't it? With different cultural groups, different populations living in different patches.
Yeah.
So the profile, I gather the profile looks great in terms of ethnic mix, but once you start looking at where people are living, it's very fragmented.
Yeah. Oh, it's getting better with ethnic mix up here. Sorry about this. I shouldn't whinge about the place where I live, but I worry about it. I want some of your art out here.
Yes, get Banksy to do something that can't be removed and stolen. That's happened before, hasn't it? Well, I don't know if this appeals to you, whether you know this already, but I noticed that Carla Denyer is on Any Questions tonight. I know they sometimes change the thing at the last minute, but it did say she was on it. And she may be known to friends. She used to come to Hallfield meeting some years ago, which is my meeting. But anyway, she's now co-lead of the Green Party and obviously on Bristol City Council. So there might be some interesting, hopefully they won't just be talking about Christmas parties at Downing Street. There must be some other matters.
Also on the things of people we know, or some of us knew, on Question Time last night.
Oh, yes.
There was there's a lady called Anne Dove, who's Frank Anne Dove used to come to Central Meeting, and his daughter was on Question Time.
Angela Anne Dove, yes. She's everywhere on radio and TV now,
Isn't she just?
And she writes, and she might have been on Imagine, that, you know, might have been on one of those programs where she's interviewed about her life and work. Yeah.
And she was also on one of my favourite programs called Doctor Who. But more of that later. Patsy, you wanted to say something, I think.
No,
Yes.
I didn't. No, I didn't have a question.
Sorry, Rosalie. Sorry, down a bit.
Thank you. I was thinking, again, going back to the panels, Helen, and you said, you know, there were some particularly interesting ones. You know, I imagine it's a huge undertaking to put on exhibitions and displays. And I was trying to think of other ways that the messages within those banners could be shared. And I wondered if the Bristol group in particular thought of creating postcards. What brought that to mind was the Quaker tapestry.
Yes.
And I was pleased to be given a set of postcards, which was just another way of sharing the messages within the Quaker panels. But also it might be, you know, that the cards could be sold at some of these exhibitions, as well as the likes of the cathedral and other shop outlets or museums and so on. But it could be just another way of spreading the message.
Yeah, nice one. Yes, I'll pass that one on. Yeah, because I imagine there's a lot of, you know, individual photos. Would you like to just, maybe to finish, if we're nearly finishing, would you like just 2 minutes of the banners flying on the drying green, a little video, little sort of jumpy video, but it's literally 2 and a bit minutes.
That's lovely.
It's, I think, well, this is if the link works off the, you know, this, if I can get it, number 19, slide number 19, and do the link. Let's just see if that works. If not, so be it. So I want 15, which, yes, that was the article in the Yate paper that Chris circulated recently. No, that's the one. Now, the thing is, no, is it going to? No, I'd probably have to go back into something and find the link. That's Fidelma. Somehow this group is full of people with most unusual names. Fidelma and Floridia. I think she might be Greek. Anyway, no, I'm not.
Helen,
I might be able to send you that with things later.
could David integrate the video on the recording in some way?
There's a technical question.
I might be able to bring it in. We'll see.
Good.
Especially, Helen, if you were to let me have the link or something.
Yes. No, I don't think doing what I just did. I'm just looking for something myself. No, got that. I didn't do it with the video. I did it with an audio, but that's a bit long and probably, yeah, I'll funny, I don't know why. Oh, hang on, it says play. No, it's not going to do that. Yeah, okay, I'll try and dig out the link for you, David, and do that. It's there's quite a lot of noise, and initially you realise it's the wind, and she's trying to angle her camera, and then you get about 1 minute of trying to show the Bristol panels, sort of walk round and show you where they are. And it would have been lovely to be there. It would have been lovely. You know, a couple of people at least went up from Bristol, and they had friends or family members they were able to stay with and stay. And I know, David, you'd been hoping to go up to Glasgow, but didn't. And I haven't had the chance yet to speak to anybody about, you know, their actual experiences there and how they've come back. So yeah, imagine we're
Well, friends,
the end of this. I think I'm just burbling generally, aren't I?
I think we've come to natural end today. And my perennial question is to my friend who is next door to me on this link to say, Patsy, what are we to have next week?
We've got Dorothy Gould talking about mental health.
Excellent.
Okay.
Should be good.
Well, thank you, friends.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your interest and appreciation. Been good to see you all.
Thanks, Helen.
Thank you.